Meeting order. We want to do a roll call. Which one?
Sure.
Okay.
Member Evelyn Fugi.
Here, present.
Member Marla Price.
Here.
And Chairman Palka.
Here. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
You can't do that.
Oh, we did. We can't even do that.
No, sir.
Okay, James, you want to give us a report?
I sure will. We'll be very.
Do we have any
brief.
public comment? Okay, James, go right ahead.
All right, sure. As you are more than likely aware, disc golf course is complete, open, running. Had the official grand opening on January 13th. Had our first official tournament out there. Had 49 players, I believe it was, who participated. Did the ribbon cutting. Holly Frontier, of course, provided door prizes. They also helped, or they actually provided the food that they fed the attendees and the tournament players out there. So it went very well, very well. It's used quite a bit. I know that I panicked a little bit because one of the baskets that we have, I don't know what hole it is. It's over on the south side, or actually it'd be the southwest corner. It's an elevated basket. I had two people just a couple of days right before the tournament say, hey, the basket's gone. I thought, it wasn't stolen. Those baskets actually lock. The Disc Golf Course Association, they do have a key, and they had moved that basket. That's just one of the features that they have, is you can move that to change up your hole locations, much like in a real golf course on the greens. They move those holes quite a bit. So everything seems to be going good. Tee-pads are holding up. Installed great. Of course, it was a volunteer effort. Roughly, as far as what it cost the city between when we started the design all the way to completion and construction, it cost us about $19,000 over the last, beginning last fiscal year and this current fiscal year.
What was budgeted for?
We budgeted $4,000 last year, and we budgeted $15,000 this year. So Holly Frontier, I don't know the exact number that the baskets cost, but it was probably close to $18,000 on the baskets. But we got all of our signs in place. So they have another tournament coming up in February, and it's actually going to be a PDGA sanctioned event. And I think they'll have, I think it's a 2-day tournament. They play here. They also play in Hobbs.
Is that the tournament they usually have in Hobbs?
That I don't know.
I think that's what they said.
If this is a brand new tournament or not.
Are we going to have food?
Don't know about that. We just supply the area. We're not running those tournaments. So, Love Street Restroom Project. Of course, it was awarded to Impact Construction. Dustin Boyd. He of course has until April 1st to finish all of the work. The plans have been submitted and permit to the state about a week and a half ago. He submitted all of the drawings and his permit to the state. We're anticipating that probably the beginning of February they'll start the construction on that. We already have our city crew going in the concession area, looking at updating the sinks and doing some painting and stuff like that on the inside. So that will be ready for baseball season. The only last two things that we have is, of course, Lee Theater. That is kind of being folded into the Parks and Recreation Department. Doing very well. To date, we've had 608 people attend since we've been open December 22nd. We did close down the weekend of New Year's. However, when you take into account all of our salaries, the improvements that we've had to make over there, we're doing quite well. We're actually about $2,300, minus $2,300 versus our expenses. So that will be built up over time. We're actually, our attendance figures, we've only had one show that was not that well attended, and that was last weekend's. No, I'm sorry, the weekend before last, when they showed only the Brave. But as far as the movie selection, we wanted to get, I believe it was Jumanji. However, they wouldn't let us have it because studios were still saying, no, we're not releasing it to other markets yet. So that was a movie for us to actually have. It didn't cost us very much to get that. We broke even last weekend basically. So this past weekend, of course, we're going to we showed a premiere, worldwide premiere. It came out, The Maze Runner. We showed it on Thursday. Not very well attended on Thursday. However, we made up for it on Friday and Saturday. So we're looking at doing some staffing. We had to change some staffing on our pro forma because it's gone over better than what we anticipated. We figured that Saturday and Sunday would be a lot slower, but Sunday is slower, but Saturday is just as busy as Friday.
Good.
So the last thing that I had to report was, as far as we're beginning work on our budget for next fiscal year already. Two of the projects that we would like to fund is one is the restrooms at the Commercial Street Baseball Complex. That will be our last facility that, as far as recreation, that we need to update the restrooms. That place actually needs updated restrooms and concessions. So we're looking at a couple of different options on that. And then also we need to replace the irrigation at, or actually replace quite a bit at Harold Reynolds. So hopefully that will eliminate a lot of our brown and weeds that we have out there. It's just inadequately irrigated. We've got a lot of broken lines. So we'll be looking at those to see if we have the funds to where we can at least start on those two projects. As far as any park improvements, I don't know right now if we're actually in a position to add any more playground equipment out at Chaparral Park. We can definitely look at that and see if they do have any matching fund grants available. The big difference is the playground equipment and splash pad that we have out there were funded through the bond issue, and we did not issue another bond this year because frankly we only had a capacity to finance about $1 million. And to put the city in debt for 15 years for $1 million, it's not really going to provide us any projects that would be worth it. We decided to hold off with the way our revenues and gross receipts are looking. We may see probably another, just off the top of my head, another 7% increase over this year if it follows the historical values. So we'll have a little bit more money, but actually talking with our financial advisor, we want to just make sure that when we do issue a bond, it can be for at least the same, if not more, than what we had released to pay for those other improvements. But that's all I have to report. I know this was just a quarterly meeting to make sure that we stay in compliance with our ordinance. And since this isn't one that meets every month, yes, this was a meeting just to provide a brief update. But if you have any ideas on any equipment or amenities that we need to add to either parks or recreation facilities, just let us know. Now is the time to do it.
I'm happy about the ones on commercial. Those were long overdue. I mean, we've had a couple of calls. We just posted today that we're starting baseball signups.
Yes, and
So we've had a lot of phone calls. I wanted to know, has soccer said where they're going to play?
No, I get in contact with them because they just recently decided they're going to have
Yeah,
soccer,
I guess
so I need to
they had
get
enough
back to
people to
them.
volunteer, and people have been asking where they're going to play, and I'm like, I have no idea, because I'm assuming softball starting at the same time. We are kind of similar to when we start, and I just didn't know where they were going to go, or
They usually have it at the softball complex.
okay.
So,
They play on the weekends only, so.
yeah.
But according to them, they were going to play a couple of them throughout the week in March, because we weren't up and running yet, but that they were going to start doing some on the weekends, but not until I think April they'll start the weekends. But I just wanted to know where they were going to go.
Yeah, I need to get in contact with them and see where, because I need to get striping paint, you know, things like that to get ready for that soccer.
And then I'm hoping my start date would be April 16th. That's what I'm shooting for. The last sign up is April 15th, so it gives me 4 weeks to get started, to let teams get uniforms, let teams practice for 3.5 weeks, and then I'm to start April 16th, the week of April 16th. And once I get schedules and all that stuff, I'll pass it on down to you, so you guys will know when, what days we play. Because there'll be some days, like when it's kindergarten graduation, we won't play those days. Hike It, Spike It weekend, we'll eliminate Fridays. So I'll give you guys schedules when those are completed. So, and that, okay.
Marlon, anything?
I was gonna ask James on this, Love Street, you was talking about that the city employees were gonna be working on the inside of the building. What is the contractor gonna do?
Contractor is going to go in and they've got to re-pour concrete, basically bring those restrooms up to ADA standards, which means literally moving a wall to where they're wheelchair accessible, replacing door frames and doors.
So most of the work is the restrooms?
Most of the work is the restrooms plus painting the exterior of the entire building, but that's very negligible compared to new plumbing, electrical, and the restroom features. So.
James, what you mentioned playground equipment at Chaparral. What are you looking at, or where at?
You know, actually, I think it's on third. Well, in the same general vicinity where we have the existing playground equipment. When we had started looking at, future growth of the park, that general area, if you recall, used to have tons of play equipment. So that area has really been reserved for equipment to preserve the open space in other areas. That's why we took that into consideration when designing that disc golf course as well. So to fill that area, which basically, if you look at it, if it's the south of the driveway, it would be the northwest corner, just somewhere in there, some equipment to where it's tied together, not to where it's so spaced apart to where you forget about where the equipment is. Much like I think, what is it, tan and blue slide that we used to have, or that we still have out there. It's located kind of towards the south side, and then you had that other equipment. And to be honest, it's like, oh, I didn't realize we had that out there. And that actually led to why we have the placement of the brand new stuff. It's just kind of a natural progression that you move over on that other equipment. But as far as what kind of equipment, I don't know. Okay. What we may have at this point.
How are the basketball? I know I've seen that there was some vandalizing and that some people broke some stuff. And
we have to rebuild build some new framework in them. They come with aluminum and they just they're built out of angle iron, so we have to do one over at Martin Luther King, down here. All 5 of them are totally rebuilt.
And they're actually going to be, one other thing is they're working on getting the rest of the new platform for the zip line installed. It's drilling a lot. It's drilling hole. It's a new system, so they got to go back in. They got to do some removals. They've got to put some more holes in. And actually, I talked with Ron Romero, the vendor that we purchased the system off of, and he's going to look at the zip line as well, because contrary to what was posted on Facebook, granted the line was broken just due to overuse. But it was caught before it broke, and the Parks Department took it down and removed the seat. So our seat did not get stolen this time. Thank goodness. But he's going to look at it as well, take a look at the cable and see if there's something else that they can do to increase the longevity of it.
You sit in there a little crooked, you just stand and look at one of them, and the other one like this to it.
oh,
So there's probably something out there. I talked to Ron Romero about that too.
Okay.
And we're thinking we might can take it loose and maybe swing it just a little and rebuild the holes and close it in.
there's a weight capacity on that, because I didn't even
What
look at
are you looking at? What?
I didn't even look at
Actually,
But I've passed by and there's been people over like 200, 300 pounds that are on there. And what's the weight?
Should we have like an alarm? Is that what you say?
honestly,
like connected to the city, cops respond? Is that what you want?
Or something that says, one person at a time, or something when they get up.
Why are you turning red?
I don't remember the weight on there, but it is one of those age-appropriate things. But it comes down to enforcing it. I mean, it's just gonna, you're too big. But we can look up those specs again. But It was, I mean, I can see where the cable can easily be worn, even by a regular kid, because if you get
Sure.
some speed up, I mean, it'll.
It
fling
zips
your
right
head.
along.
It zips, it does what it's called. So,
Okay.
Swing each other on the tip.
George, did you have some?
Yeah, regarding the basketball courts, I mean, that may be something nice to redo, probably make 2 courts. I've had people complain that there's only
Yeah,
one.
I've heard that.
They
And then
can't play.
striping too. I've heard that, I guess, if there's no striping out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
At our Shepro?
court out there.
so,
Add another basketball court out there.
or just redo it and make it big enough for 2 courts. And I know, like in Tatum, I'm just throwing this out there, but they have a covered basketball court. And it's kind of like a metal building with no walls. And, you know, it just provides shade in the summertime. We use that for the blizzard race in the summertime. You know, have little basketball tournaments in the summertime to have kids out of trouble.
Oh, talking about that, about metal bills, I know someone that sells them, but they're, Steel Depot from Hobbs had mentioned to me if I needed any steel or if I needed any of the paneling, I guess it's called paneling,
Dollar panel.
for baseball, that they would be willing to donate. So I'm sure if you
Oh,
could
really?
get some specs or how much you need, you could probably get it donated or something.
Oh, wow.
But he asked me if I needed anything for baseball, and I'm like, the dugouts are good.
Let me ask you this, since that's a good idea. One of the problems that we have at our ball fields, in the non-backstop areas, is the chain link.
Oh yeah, all of them have.
Does it have to be chain link, or could it be R-panel?
No, I think it's just the only difference is like when chain link a ball comes and it actually hits, but I mean, it doesn't bounce right back. With the paneling, it would hit and it bounce right back, but I don't think it matters.
Well, I mean, even if we left some chain link up to do that, but just to make it, it's more of an eye appeal thing. You dress it up. I mean, yeah, you're high, but it just, that stuff gets stretched out.
Right.
It just looks bad.
You're
But
talking about like around the back part of the dugout?
Where the
on the
catcher's
fence,
at, yeah.
just no, on the perimeter fencing.
Whatever he mentioned.
I mean, just
They donated
an
a lot to
idea, because
Eunice.
I don't like the, personally, it just seems like we go over there, they tear up the chain link for people climbing on it over years and years, and you just can't ever get it to fit right. And I didn't know if you all had ever seen a facility that did its perimeter fencing with, you know,
Whatever
Yeah.
he mentioned it to me, and he said if I needed anything in Lovington, and I was like, well, I'll look into it. He had offered the baseball park, and I know to Eunice they delivered a lot of supplies for them, and it was given. And he asked me if I needed anything, and I'm like, my dugouts are good.
Well,
I just
Is
didn't think
the
anything
high
else.
school field on the back part, not the whole perimeter, but the back part, isn't it solid?
Yeah, it is. I was just like that too. Some of the fields just have a back part with that type of. It looks nice too.
yeah, it does. It looks really nice.
But it also gives you a place to hang sponsor banners.
Right.
Yeah, so,
You look into that.
yeah,
Yeah,
let me
please do.
know. I know people.
You got pictures?
I do.
All right, all right. And as far as the playground, let's look at it. I'd be more comfortable in the next fiscal year as opposed to this.
Yeah, no, I think the only way we would be able to move forward with that, though, is if they did have that matching program. But we'll definitely look and see what we can come up with. I don't remember the exact matching cost that the city had to put forth on that. I don't remember. But yeah, easily that was a $300,000 investment, roughly, if you count the in-kind contributions and construction and stuff. And that might, I don't know how difficult it would be, but the foreman who was installing the playground, he said that's the last time I do one of those. It was a lot of hole drilling and concrete
I'm
filling.
sure.
He said it was very labor intensive, but we can find somebody to install it, I'm sure. That's all I've got.
Just a general question, a couple of general questions. What's our GRT looking like right now, James?
GRT is staying right on track. with what we had budgeted. We're looking at, if, right now, if things stay the same, as far as what we're receiving every month, we should finish the year with around $6.5 million in GRT coming in.
How much is AED? Are we still like in the 17s, or are we
Yes.
still?
You can actually go to the website and see the updated GRT. As far as like solid waste, ambulance collections, wastewater, those are a little bit behind, and that's just getting information migrated over into it. But the GRTs are up to date. Those GRT reports typically come out anywhere from the 15th to the 18th of every month, and then a couple days after that, they will publish the gas tax revenue through the state of New Mexico as well. So,
How does the current GRT compare to last year's and the previous year?
well, it would be easier if I could show you.
Very good. Very good. No llores. You really got a picture of mine?
That's my theme pretty.
You need to post that on there. She's got a video of you on the seat.
I think that's already posted on my page.
Oh, is it?
James on the zip line.
On the grand opening day.
Yeah.
Hey, that was the last time I got on. Okay, so you can look on our revenue here, pull it up. So if you look, kind of what we've done, if you haven't visited this portion, is we break it down and show whenever you pay sales tax in Lovington, where it actually goes. So that 7 1/4, we get 1.875% of that. The rest of it goes to the state. The rest of it goes to Lee County. So we also explain where the revenue, what the revenue goes to pay for. So general fund, if you look, we finished out last year at 5.4. We're predicting finishing out 6.5 by June 30th of this year. You can see that in 2015 we were at 7.1, 2014 9.3. So to be realistic, we're probably at least another 1.5 to 2 years from hitting that $8 or $9 million mark.
Okay.
It took us a while to build up that steam. And then of course, here's the economic development tax.
31?
Yeah, 31, but you also have October. Okay, so one thing to remember is that these revenues right here, even this on the general fund. So in October, this was a good month, 770. So it's the LEDA is like 1/8 of 1%. Hold harmless is 3/8 of 1%. But this is the October report. This is for sales reported in, or sales that were made in August.
So Fair Rodeo.
People paid in September. Yes, people paid in September, but it's not distributed until October, so it runs 2 months behind.
Okay.
So you can see our LEDA fund. Of course, hold harmless. You can see that we haven't earmarked very many projects through this because we want to make sure we build up that reserve to meet those debt obligations that we have. And of course, the gas tax fund. This hasn't been updated yet because we hadn't received those figures. But you can see, if anybody wonders why we don't set the price at the pump, and actually taxes on fuel has not increased, period, over the past couple of years. I believe it's 17 cents for every gallon sold, and this is just gasoline. Regardless of what it costs, 17 cents goes to the state. I'm sorry, 18.4 cents for diesel, 17 cents is the state tax, of which we roughly get about 2 to 3 cents per gallon for every gallon sold. I believe there is a 21-cent federal tax on that stays flat. It's a flat tax regardless of how much it's sold. So it's not a question of taxes being raised or increased. It's solely up to the distributor who's selling it, or actually the retailer who's selling it. They set those prices. But you can see it doesn't generate very much. Whereas you can look at how much it costs to replace a road. Solid waste, of course, is only used for solid waste operations. And then, of course, the ambulance fund for EMS and utilities. So,
What do we sit with the reserves right now, percentage-wise?
reserves, we're like 25, I think it's 25%. I'd have to go back and run some math, but we're still within what we had reauthorized and made the adjustments for.
Okay.
And with the increases, it's actually, it's putting us even in a better position.
Right.
So.
Increased GRT. We're
Yes,
still
sir.
better than we were last year and even the year before, correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you roll back up to that first page? GRT. Yeah, 'cause we were better than even in 2015 and 16 right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, it was right on track with what we did in 14, 15. One thing, if you go to the state's website and look at this information is obtained off of an RP 500. So whenever you look at the distribution, that is the raw number. That's not broke down. The raw number is our general fund, the LEDA, and then the hold harmless tax. It's all lumped together. When we get the information, that's where we actually split what goes. Hold harmless right now, the way the ordinance is set up, is that because of this year, it is 18% of 30% of the distribution goes back to the general fund. The reason it does that is because the state instituted that bill in 2014-15 to where they were phasing out the hold harmless distribution that the state gives us. And so for every year it increases. So next year it'll be 24% of 30%. So like right now it's about $1,800 a month goes to the general fund to help offset that loss that from revenue we're not getting. At the end of 15 years, about $400,000 a year will be going from hold harmless into the general fund, unless we change the ordinance. So,
Does the cities, do they get anything from the county taxes?
property taxes, we get maybe around $200,000 a year. It's not very much whatsoever, and that's based off the valuations within the city limits. But right, yeah, the lion's share of that, the property tax goes to Lee County, the state of New Mexico, the hospital district, and the school district. But it's roughly about, I want to say $200,000 from property taxes.
So the December one, we won't see it till February, because usually because it looks like December,
Right.
February would be the Christmas spendings, right?
Correct.
So we have that 1 million.
So you forecasted 6.5 million?
That is what we budgeted, sir, yes. And I think we discussed this a couple weeks ago, and we did the math, and if you look at the averages, we were going to be $21,000 short of what we had actually predicted. So, it was
pretty close.
Very close. So we should be sitting very good.
All right, very good. I didn't have anything else.
Yeah, on the grants, you were talking about the matching fund grants.
Oh, for the
playground
equipment, yes, ma'am.
Does it have to be matching funds from the city, or can it be matching funds from, say, like a company that donates?
Oh, no. What I meant by on that particular grant, I think it was Exerplay or Game Time. What they would do on certain pieces of equipment, they would provide 50% matching funds up to a maximum amount. So let's say that the cap on the grant was 100,000.
So that was
If we
actually
went
the
in,
company.
yeah, that was basically an in-kind contribution. So if it was $200,000, I don't remember the exact amount on that grant, but if it was $200,000 and it was equipment from this particular line, basically the only thing the city had to do was provide $100,000 in cash. Game time would cover the rest. But it pertained to some of it. That's why it wasn't an equal split on that, because some of the equipment, like I believe it was the zip line, I think that climbing pyramid, those were two pieces of equipment that didn't qualify for that particular grant, but we told them this is our project budget, get us what you can.
But on that, could
But
the other 100,000 that
Oh,
we
yeah.
had to pay, could that have come from?
it could have come
the
from
old
somebody
company or
else,
somebody?
yes, and then we could have still made that city contribution as well. It would have just expanded the amount of equipment. So there's, yeah, I mean, you know, so if we budget $100,000 and let's say that they do have that up 50%, you know, up to 100,000, they'll give that 100,000. If somebody else provides 100,000, I mean, we could potentially get, you know, $400,000 worth of equipment if that grant still is in play.
And if you budget that, if it's a budget a certain amount, you don't have to spend that, right, in the fiscal year, if that grant is not there, or that you can't use it, or you don't have enough to use it.
Well,
If
no,
it's
we
in the
don't
budget,
have
you
to,
don't have
if we budget, right, if we budget, that's, if we budget it, we don't necessarily have to spend it. But that's why we, you know, we do the ICIP so we can identify it. So let's say that we want to get the playground equipment, the grant doesn't, but we've already allocated $100,000 towards this, towards, you know, the parks. We could look at doing some other amenities or just totally canceling that allocation that particular year. And that's also another reason whenever you look at, we do zero-based accounting. So the numbers that you see on there that the commission approves, that's a budget based on this is what we think we are going to spend, is the easiest way to explain it, based on this is what revenues we think we're going to get. I mean, we have money in the bank, but just because we have a $27 million budget doesn't mean we have $27 million in the bank. It means that we anticipate this revenue, this is what we believe our expenses are going to be. So, and that's why if revenues start to come down, we were able to actually reduce expenditures because it was on projects that we had not initiated yet.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
One more thing, I was talking to George before the meeting started about the concession stand doors on Love Street. Do you have any idea what, are you gonna try to get them fixed or just build new doors?
You know what? Overhead Doors still hasn't contacted me back on that. I don't know if it would be easier just to replace it or.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to replace the entire unit is the thing. It's just.
We were talking, my opinion is if you built the doors where they closed and locked from the inside, make them out of sturdier metal instead of aluminum, that would keep them from tearing them up again.
We have the equipment there, welder, torch, and all that. Probably do ourselves.
They try to break in every year. This last year, that's the reason why that door is torn up.
Yeah.
Because they tried to break into it this past year.
Yeah, I mean, we've got heavy steel doors at the Love Street complex, and that's why we have to replace the frame and all. So, well, we can definitely work on it.
Like they say, build it and they will come.
Exactly, exactly.
I just know heavier steel doors will last longer, even though they do try to break in, will last longer than aluminum roll-up doors.
Anybody else have anything else? All right. I don't know if you'll just note that we did not have a quorum and that we took no action on any items that were known. There was no action items in